You're listening to the Vocabbett podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 36 of the Vocabbett podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company, Vocabbett. In the last episode, I shared that we're going to be diving into etymology for a while. Instead of me writing a story and weaving in SAT words, we're going to start with the SAT word and hear its story. Or in this case, the SAT root, which is even better because roots are like master keys to the English language. If you know one root, it unlocks many words, and the root mon is no different. Now, what I'm about to share with you on this podcast is available in much more depth in the Vocabbett membership. If this episode interests you, make sure to go get a membership at vocabbett.com. That's VOC and then Abbott, like my last name, ABBETT. Watch the video to deepen and solidify your learning, and watch all of the other etymology videos too. So, with this mon root, you will find SAT words like admonish, premonition, M-O-N, premonition, summon, monetary, monetarist, monetarily, monetize. And as I go through this list, you're going to start to notice that there are two distinct themes. There's the kind of ominous warning theme with those first words. Premonition is like your spidey sense warning you that something's wrong. And then there's the money theme with words like monetary. And would you believe me if I said that all of those money words came from a flock of geese sacred to the goddess Juno, who warned the Romans of an imminent invasion? So again, the video of this is so much better because I have all these pictures and everything, but bear with me. Around 400 BCE, when Rome more or less only controlled Rome, they hadn't pushed out into Europe and even really the Italian peninsula, they were invaded by the Gauls, people from more or less modern-day France. And the Gauls forced the Romans to retreat to the Capitoline Hill, one of the 7 hills of Rome. And when I teach history, I love asking my students about the pros and cons of warfare on hills, because there are pretty big pros and pretty big cons. The pro of retreating to a hill is that you have greater visibility, so you're less likely to be ambushed, and you have gravity working on your side, so you can basically drop stuff on people's heads. Gravity does a lot of the fighting for you. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to retreat to a hill. In fact, you often have a tactical advantage. But if the fight is long-term, there's a big downside too. And it's that it's pretty easy to surround you if you're on a hill and cut you off from food and water. And that's exactly what the Gauls did to the Romans. So the Romans find themselves trapped on this hill, and they were able to, forage and live off the land for a bit. But it got to the point where they had basically eaten every scrap of food and grass and everything on this hill, except for a flock of geese. The geese were sacred to the goddess Juno. You might know her by her Greek name, Hera. And if you know anything about Juno, aka Hera, you know that she's a certifiable psycho, and her favorite spy, Argus, has 100 eyes. When he died, she turned him into a peacock, and that's why there are all those circles on a peacock's tail. That's what the Greeks and Romans believed, at least. So you'll often see Hera depicted with a peacock. Argus was her BFF/spy. But the Romans, bless their hearts, even then knew that Hera was a goddess not to be trifled with. So even though they were starving, they were so scared to death of Juno that they wouldn't touch these geese. And their piety, as the story goes, was rewarded. Because the Gauls, who apparently have the patience of a toddler, instead of just starving them out, were like, dude, I'm so sick of this siege. I just want to get back to France. Let's just attack. So the Gauls scaled the walls of the Capitoline, and the Romans were hungry. They were tired, lethargic, and apparently not standing guard. And they probably would have been slaughtered, potentially snuffing out one of the greatest empires in the world before it ever began, if not for those geese. According to Livy, and this is a direct primary source quote, you're going to laugh at this. Okay, here's the quote. "Their honking and flapping of wings awoke Marcus Manlius, distinguished in war and consul 3 years before. He snatched up his weapons and, at the same time, urged others to get theirs. While the others were in a panic, with his shield he hit one Gaul, who by now was standing at the top. and sent him falling down the hill. Falling, that Gaul knocked down those closest to him, and Manlius killed other frightened Gauls. By now, other Romans had joined Manlius and, with javelins and missiles, sent enemies down the hill head first. Okay, that's the end of the quote. And I think it is a crime that, as we're discussing etymology, the word Manlius, unfortunately, does not give us the word manly. But this story is going to give us a lot of mon words, or mon, however you want to pronounce it, M-O-N. Here's where those warning and money words are going to start coming into play. In order to thank the goddess Juno for sending a warning through her sacred geese, the Romans are going to erect a temple to Juno Moneta, Juno the Warner. That mon root, M-O-N, in Latin originally meant to warn, moneo monere. Years later, the Romans started printing money in this temple. Where do you print your money? Oh, the moneta. If you look at this word, you'll see how similar moneta is to what we get from it, mint. Moneta, mint, M-N-T. Do you see how those consonants are all the same? Oh, and what do you print in the moneta? We print monet, which is obviously where we get the word money, but also those other mon words I shared at the beginning of the episode. Monetary, which means relating to money. Monetize, which means to make money off of. So these money words, ironically, come from a flock of honking geese who warned the Romans that the Gauls were invading. Money, geese, and warnings. They go hand in hand. So if you see a mon root on the SAT, you'll know that, among other choices, you should test out warning words and money words. If you're being admonished, for instance, monished, admonished, you're being chastised. You're being warned not to do something again. If you're being summoned, this is really cool because you can see how at its heart, this word is a little ominous. If you're being summoned, it's not like, hey, you want to come over for cookies? If you're being summoned, there is a veiled threat in there. It's, I am warning you, you better show up. Usually, you're not summoned by your neighbor. You're summoned by the king or queen. It's not a simple invitation. It's just so cool when you peel back the layers of these words. Just a reminder, if you like the study of etymology, I have a whole series on this in the Vocabbett membership, and it targets these high-frequency SAT words and roots. Money, geese, and warnings is one of them, and there are a lot more. You can sign up today at vocabbett.com. And I'm starting to put the hard sell on the membership again because I am going to be raising the price at some point. So I want to make sure that you guys who are here with me from the beginning can get locked in at this lower price. And if you're enjoying the Vocabbett podcast and if you're learning something, I would really appreciate it if you took a second to leave it a review. Okay, thank you again. I will see you on Thursday.